says that seafood is limited to fishies? How about seaweed? That's also from the sea and could be considered seafood, right? In Asia, we eat seafood in terms of seaweed all the time. It's a popular food. In fact, it's in one of the, it's a dietary requirement to eat seaweed on a daily basis in Japan because it's so full of iron and nutrients, all sorts of good things. And you know what? If we keep eating the fish from the sea, we're going to completely deplete the oceans by 2050. They are threatened to collapse by then. So we have to be very, very careful. But you can capture that wonderful seafood flavor if that is what you like. I grew up on seafood, and so I really missed it when I went vegetarian and then vegan. But I learned quickly that you can replicate those flavors just by using the varieties of seaweed that are available. And there are so many different varieties that most Americans don't know about, but they're just beginning to be discovered and accepted here in the US and across Europe as well too, which is really exciting. So I'm making a recipe from the Homemade Vegan Pantry. It is my seafood chowder. That's UC food. And it's also seafood. So that's what we're making today. And I picked some vegetables for the garden for it. And just look at this beautiful pot of creamy chowder. I'm going to serve this to some friends tomorrow. So I am really excited to make some focaccia later that I can serve alongside this. But in order to make the seafood chowder, you got to start out by making seafood stock. So that's what we're going to do first. We're going to make the stock, and then we're going to make the chowder. Now, if you just don't want to bother making the stock, that's okay. You can even use a vegan chicken bouillon cube. If that's, if you just don't want to bother, or a vegetable stock, that's okay. And you can just add a little bit of extra seaweed at the end, a little bit of wakame powder, a little bit of nori, just to bump up that flavor of the sea. So you're getting 2 recipes in one here, but you can skip the first part if you want. So we're going to start out with an onion. You can just slice it or you can dice it. It really doesn't matter. Okay, same thing with the carrots. I got 3 carrots here. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's really more like 2 carrots, but you want to have like 3 good carrots. But this is what I got, so this is what I'm going to use. Okay, and then I have the leek from the garden that we just picked. I have our homemade olive oil from the olive trees up at the vineyard. And I'm just going to put a couple tablespoons here in this pot. Get that hot, and in go the veggies. Okay, get my garlic rock out. And we're going to add 3 or 4 cloves of garlic. You don't have to really chop these. You can if you want, because it's just going to simmer, and we're going to be straining it. So I'm throwing that in there, adding a little sea salt, and we're just going to let this sweat for a few minutes before we add the liquids. Okay, my vegetables have wilted, so now we're going to add the liquids and the other ingredients. So I'm going to come in here with 8 cups of water. I'm starting out with 4. I'm going to go get another 4. I'm going to add a cup of white wine. If you are not doing alcohol, you can skip that, or add about a tablespoon of lemon juice. A little bit of acid really does help, and the wine does round out the flavor and make it more, I don't know, profound, but you can skip it. Of course, the cooking of it will cook out most of the alcohol. Now for the seafood flavor, we're going to add kombu. I was gifted from some Japanese friends of mine, a friend of mine that has a vegan restaurant in Kyoto in Japan named Choice, but she brought to the United States with her the most amazing kombu I have ever had. This kombu is just so good. Now typically when you buy kombu at the store, you'll get it, it'll be flatter and wider, and you want about a 6-inch piece. Oh my God, this is seriously the most flavorful kombu I've ever had. So I'm gonna add one of those right there to that. And finally, you're supposed to add some dulse, about a half a cup of dulse, which I thought I had, so I didn't buy it. And then I got home and realized it was something else that I had in the fridge. So we're gonna skip that. I can bump up the seafood flavor later by adding some nori, or I can just throw some nori in here right now. And finally, you want about 12 of these black peppercorns. However, I am making this for a friend of mine who's allergic to peppers, so I'm going to skip it. But you should add about 12 peppercorns if you can handle it. It's not going to be spicy because it's all going to get strained. And I'm going to add a piece of nori now. Oh, a little bit of salt too. And we're going to let this simmer for about 45 minutes. And then we'll come back. So while my seafood stock is getting ready, I'm going to start prepping the ingredients for the seafood chowder. Now, instead of seafood, we're going to be using mushrooms, of course. So I've got several different kinds here. These are beach mushrooms, and I rinsed them slightly. We're just going to break them up into clumps. I need about 2 pounds of mushrooms. And we're going to actually roast these mushrooms first to sort of concentrate the flavor, make them a little chewier. You could also saute them on very high heat. That would be another way to do it. But there's so much mushrooms here, or so many mushrooms here, that it's just easier to spread them out on a sheet pan and put them in the oven to concentrate the flavor and get that chewy, dense texture that we're looking for. So these are oyster mushrooms. I have some king trumpet mushrooms here that'll be really chewy and wonderful. I'm going to put them on a different sheet pan, and I'm going to sprinkle these with a little bit of my olive oil from our trees. Oh my God, I just love using this stuff, except it is like liquid gold. So I'm trying to be judicious in my use. So I don't use it all up before the harvest next year. Actually, it's this year now. Harvest in November. Okay, we're going to roast these at 425 degrees at a high temperature to really evaporate that water quickly and render these nice and chewy. These you could tear, but instead I'm going to just cut the bottom off. This is a little tough. We'll turn them into little scallop-sized pieces. I love king trumpet mushrooms. Okay, we're going to get these in the oven now. And everything's going to shrink a little bit. Looks like a lot of mushrooms, 2 pounds indeed, but they will shrink. Make sure you leave plenty of room, that they're not sitting on top of each other, because then they're going to be sitting in a pool of water. So you want to make sure that there is some room around the mushrooms for the water to evaporate rather than just soaking into the mushrooms next door. And when the oven is hot, we'll pop them in there. All right, I'm going to dice an onion. Okay, I'm going to prep the rest of the veggies while the onions are cooking down. I've got about 12 ounces of potatoes, Yukon Golds, and to peel or not to peel, that is the question. And today I'm not going to peel because I'm feeling lazy. You don't need to, especially with a waxy potato like a Yukon Gold or a red potato. The skins are thin, they're nutritious. Let's just let the skins be. So I'm going to just dice these, but if you want to peel, go ahead, or just scrub. We've got potatoes growing in the garden as well, and last summer I made potato croquettes for the campers at Rancho Compasión, and oh my God, they were wonderful. The kids absolutely loved harvesting the potatoes. Now, we grew them actually in potato sacks. So all you had to do when the potatoes were ready was dump out the entire sack and the potatoes just went rolling around. Oh, they were so much fun. The recipe also calls for, or I called for in the recipe, 3 carrots. And I'm going to show you my carrots that I got from the garden the other day. They're a little small, so I think I'm just going to keep them for munching on. And instead, I happen to have a butternut squash, so we're going to use that instead, okay? We want some of that beautiful orange color to pop. And the recipe also calls for a red bell pepper, but I'm making this for a friend who has a pepper allergy, so I'm going to leave the pepper out, and we're just going to count on the butternut squash to give that pop of yellow or orange. So we'll dice these as well. I always like to get the butternut squashes that have the longest necks because there's fewer seeds to have to deal with. The seeds are only in this part, in the bulb part. So get one with a long neck and you have fewer seeds that you will have to spoon out. Get them to be about the same size as the potatoes. Ooh, not paying attention and I'm about to burn the onion. That'll just give it a little bit of color to the soup. Won't be the end of the world. Okay, now it's time to strain the broth, the seafood broth. It's been about 45 minutes. It's cooked down quite a bit. And I'm going to come over here and pour it through here very gently. And I need about 5 cups of broth. I'm going to have just about 5 cups. Oh, that is perfect. So it is cooked down quite a bit. That's 4 cups. And into my pot, this goes. Let's get 1 more cup of broth. Okay. Now I'm going to add the vegetables. I'm going to add a little bit of minced garlic to this. And finally, a secret ingredient, wakame powder. So wakame is another Japanese seaweed that's sold dried. And what I did was I put that in the blender until it pulverized into this fine powder. And just a tablespoon of this is going to give it this wonderful, delicate flavor of the sea. So we'll add about a tablespoon of this. And we're going to let that simmer for about 20 minutes while the mushrooms are also in the oven cooking away. Alrighty, this lovely seafood chowder is going to be thickened and whitened with some wonderful cashew cream. So I'm going to start out with 2 cups of water and 1 cup of cashews. Now the cashews in the double amount of water will make a very thick cream that will actually thicken this soup and give it some body and creaminess. So it's not going to be just like adding almond milk to it, which would not add any viscosity at all. But the cashew cream will add that viscosity we're looking for, that nice, thick, creamy texture we're looking for when we have a chowder. So we're going to add 1 cup of cashews. If you have a cashew allergy, I can recommend another milk that is absolutely wonderful, and that would be made out of watermelon seed kernels. Now, my new cookbook is coming out in September, the Vegan Creamery, and I have all kinds of recipes using watermelon seed kernels in there because it's such a wonderfully milky milk. I absolutely love it. Doesn't have the thickening capabilities of cashews, however, so you'll have to thicken it by making some sort of bechamel. All right, I'm going to turn this on. Okay, my mushrooms are ready. They browned a little bit, they've shrunk a little bit, and now we're going to add the mushrooms to the soup. And now we're going to add the cream, which will, of course, thin it out and thicken it at the same time. Thinning it out in terms of concentration, the ratio of liquid to solid ingredients, and it will thicken the liquid ingredients. So you can add the entire amount or a little bit less. Oh, look at that. Okay, that is thin now, but within minutes, it's going to thicken up. The cashew cream acts as a thickening agent to add viscosity to the broth. Oh my God, that is going to be so delicious. I think I'm going to add it all, because I got a lot of stuff in there. And we'll cook this until it thickens up briefly. And then all we really have to do is sprinkle some parsley on top for color and enjoy the soup with some crusty bread. Okay, I'm ready to serve the soup. My hard work has paid off. It smells delicious. This is delicious. It's creamy. It's got that punch of the sea without it being fishy. Wow, that is fantastic. Oh, look at that. Look at that beautiful king trumpet mushroom looking like a scallop, but it is not. So let's give this a try. Wow, it's chewy, it's succulent, and then it's just perfectly juicy right in the middle. That is wonderful. Well, I think my seafood chowder is going to be a big hit with my friends tomorrow. I hope it'll be a hit with you. Tell me in the comments below, do you like chowder? Is that something you miss? Have you made a version of something like this before? Please like and comment below, and I'll see you again next time.